بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. عن جابر رضي الله عنه وأرضاه قال قال رجل للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يوم أحد أرأيت إن قتلت فأين أنا؟ قال في الجنة. فألقى ثمرات كن في يده ثم قاتل حتى قتل. متفق عليه. I'm looking for the Arabic students, some of them was here. They'd be able to translate some of this. يا جنيد أين أنت؟ تعال هنا سيدي جنيد، تعال هنا، تعال هنا. What did he say? He said أرأيت. What does أرأيت mean? So رأى means to see, yeah? So رأيت means what? رأيت. So imagine رأى, you're going up that way. رأيت رأيتما رأيتم رأيتي رأيتما رأيتن رأيت رأينا. رأيت. What does that mean? You saw. So ask for questioning. It says أرأيت. Do you see in قتلت? قتل قتل. قتل means what? He was killed. What does قتلت mean? أنا. I am killed. Yeah? So he says, I'll put him on the spot a little bit, so he's panicking. So he says, Nam. So he says, in قتلت, that if, in is for if. In قتلت, if I am killed, فأين أين أنا? أين أنا mean? Where am I? Yeah, so he says, Ya Rasulullah, this is a hadith narrated by Jabir, that a man said to Rasulullah Yawm Uhud. When's Uhud? You have the first battle, which is Badr, the second, which is Uhud. Yes, where the Muslims took a huge blow. They were not defeated, yeah, but they suffered a blow because they didn't listen to the Prophet ﷺ. When the archers, there was a little mount. Those of you that have been to Uhud, mashallah, you just came back. So there's a little mount, the Mount of Uhud, which the Prophet ﷺ said there's a mountain that loves us and we love it. Yeah. And when he was stood on Uhud with Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Ali, and the mountain out of awe began to shake. So the Prophet ﷺ stomped his foot on it and he said, be still, O Uhud, for on you is a Nabi, a Siddiq, and 2 Shaheeds. From the knowledge of the Prophet, isn't it? You have a Nabi, you have a Siddiq, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, 2 Shaheeds, meaning Hazrat Umar and Hazrat Ali, both were martyred. 2 martyrs. But anyway, so the mountain is here, and there's a small little, you can climb onto the top of it very easily, where he had placed archers, archers. Yeah? And he said to them, okay, you stay here, so if the kuffar of Quraysh try to sneak around the back to attack us, then you can start firing on them. When they saw that the Muslims were winning, they thought, what? Let's go down, collect the war booty, move on with life. And some of the Sahaba were saying, no. Rasulullah said it, don't move. Some of them said, well, look, we can see that we won because they had won in Badr. They saw that the angels came to help them. They had no doubt that they were going to win. But what they missed out on, when people say in it, okay, this is the deen and the deen will remain and, end of times, no problem. Deen to rahega, lekin iske kuch sharait bhi hai. There's conditions for the baqa of deen. And from the conditions of the baqa of deen is what? Taqaza. You have to fulfill the requirements of the deen. You can't say कि हम आशिक रसूल हैं लेकिन हुजूर का एक भी फरमान भी जो है ना काबिल कबूल नहीं, नाउज़ बिल्लाह मिन ज़ालिक. ऐसा भी तो नहीं होगा. You can't have your cake and eat it, as they say, right? We can't be like, no, this is the religion, but I'm just gonna protect my quote unquote immediate self-interest and I'm not gonna follow the religion. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. This religion has baqa through practice, through rijal, through the noble souls of those great men and women that said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah alayhi salatu. But anyway, so these archers, they decided कि ठीक है हम भी चले. And when they went down, what happens? At that time, Hazrat Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu was not musharraf bil Islam. Ab is waqt tak Hazrat Khalid ibn Walid musharraf bil Islam nahi hue the. He wasn't a Muslim just yet. And he was obviously a great general. So he took his little troops behind, and they began to attack the Muslims from both sides, and they suffered a great blow. And the Prophet ﷺ backed up onto the mountain of Uhud. You used to be able to climb into that. And now what the Saudis have done, unfortunately, is firstly they've turned it into it was like full of rubbish. And then now they've placed did you see it? Like they've placed all these rocks. So now like you have to be like a rock climber to climb it. And Zindabad, there's always Pakistanis trying to climb it, right? To go in there and ma fahimu haula wallahi ma fahim. Like, they didn't get the point, People just want to go and just smell the air where the Prophet had sat, even for a moment. They just want to be there. So perhaps if I put my blessed hands where he had put his blessed hands, or astaghfirullah, what did I just say? Perhaps I can place my head where his blessed feet were, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Perhaps I can kiss that ground, They said, Iqbal, I wish if I knew the line of poetry of Baha. Iqbal, they said to him, he says, he's talking to Abdul Aziz, the king, and he said that you accuse me of prostrating to the grave of the Prophet. He said, I didn't prostrate to the grave of the Prophet. I was cleaning the dust with my eyelashes. That's what he said. And that's a very, very important difference between what somebody does when they do shirk and what someone does when they have love. But nobody prostrates to anybody except Allah. That's not the point. But when people go to these places, they go out and love. I want to clean the blessed grave with my eyelashes, because nothing else is worth. These are languages of love. It's just a way that you speak or you behave to show that you're beloved, that I love you so much that it's not worthy that I do jaru with the jaru that we use in our houses. Like, no, I come, traditionally, for men, the bed used to be for izzat. They used to have this, like even the Arabs, they used to have this, used to be izzat, to have a beard, to have something on your face to distinguish you from a female, to show that you're mard. This used to be like a love, honor in that, right, for them. And so they used to go, and some of the awliya, and they'd be wiping the space in which the Prophet was buried with their beds to say that, Ya Rasulullah, we sacrifice our izzat for you. Our honor is sacrificed for you. And then our eyes are sacrificed for you. We are sacrificed for you, Ya Rasulullah. For you, we sacrifice everything. That's what they used to do. Unfortunately, when people are mahroom of hubb, when they don't know love, they never felt it. They don't understand what you're saying and what you're doing. They just think, every morning, shayad, maybe. But maybe you haven't tasted something that they've tasted. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe sit with them for a little while and see what they're experiencing, what sort of emotions, what sort of love. That's the love that's going to save you Yawm al-Qiyamah. Wallahi, nothing else is going to save you. A deep love for Allah, for His Rasul, for His Ahlul Bayt, for His Sahaba, for the awliya, for the Ummah, for the people of Palestine, for your brothers and sisters. There's a hubb, because this is an act. Is love not an act? It's an act of the heart. So I remember some of the mashayikh, they would say, I don't have lots of deeds to give to Allah on the Day of Judgment, but I'll say, Ya Rabbi, I loved you and your Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. Now that being said, there's still Imam al-Qadi Iyaz in the Shifa Sharif. What did he say? Al-Qadi Iyad, the author of Al-Shifa bi Ta'arifi Huquq al-Mustafa, right? One of the great authors, one of the great Maliki jurists of Andalusia. You know what he said? He said, Alamatul Hubb al-Ittiba'. That a sign of that love. You love Rasulullah. You want to, do jaru of his blessed grave with your eyelashes. You love him this much, right? You honor every stone in Medina Munawwara, every animal, every fly, everything. You honor that out of love. A sign of that love is ittiba', is obedience. They say the Arab, they have a muhavara. They say al-muhib lil-mahbubi muti'. That the muhib for the mahbub is muti'. कि जो मुहिब होता है वो अपने महबूब के लिए ताबेदार होता है. So if you say Ana uhibbullah, I love Allah, Prove it. What have you done for Allah? Ana uhib Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prove it. Prove it. What have you done? What's your daleel? What's your daleel? When someone says, oh, I love so and so, there's a daleel. You can see it. Ittiba'. So the archers, they came down in any case. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, ghalti ho jani hai. They came down and they suffered a blow. This was an important lesson for us. हम उनके इश्क मोहब्बत में तो कोई शक नहीं करते है ना वो जो थे तो आज से सहाबा रदियल्लाहु अन्हु we got no doubt in their love, but in that moment they didn't obey the statement of the Prophet, stay here until I tell you, and there was a great blow that was dealt on Uhud. From that we take a big lesson कि ठीक है हम सब मोहब्बत करते हैं to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, लेकिन इसके कुछ तकाज़े भी होते हैं ना अब ताबेदारी इत्तिबा, that you have to walk as he walked alayhi salatu wasalam. Otherwise you get left by the wayside. And people don't like these things, but just today, I mean, there's taqazi for these things, like, there's people that are standing by watching the horrors, going by and won't speak a word, because this idea of, no, why not? Why? What else are you going to do in your life that's great? Have something that you can present to Allah on the Day of Judgment. Ya Rabbi, I did something. I did whatever I could. Rasulullah said, if you see a munkar, change it with your hand. Yeah? And if you can't, وَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِيعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. And if you can't, then with his tongue, come as come, yaar. Come as come. And وَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِيعْ. And even if you can't do that, come as come, have hatred in your heart, nafrat in your heart for it. And the Prophet, this is the weakest of iman. So there has to be taqaza, there has to be sibghatullah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنْ مِنَ اللَّهِ sibgha. Surah Baqarah. Sibghatullah. I don't know how you translate the word sibgha. You use dye. In our language we say rang. Falanu rang lag gaya. We say that, don't we? Rang lag gaya. Sibgha. Allah says, meaning, in Arabic they call mulawwan. Oh, he's mulawwan bi ulama al-Sham. هذا الشخص, this person درس في الشام, studied في الشام. الآن هو ملون بأهل الشام. He's شامي رنگ لگ گیا. He talks, he behaves, he thinks like the ulama of Sham. Someone studied Hadramaut, ملون. They say why? He's ملون الحضارمة. He has the lawn, he looks like them, he feels like them, he smells like them, he behaves like them. Then you have Allah's sibgha. Allah's sibgha. Mulawwan with what? Mulawwan with taqwa, mahabba of Allah. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, sometimes you see a wali, a man of God, and when you look at them, they remind you of Allah. Say Allah. Why? Because they're mulawwan. They're wearing a libas that's not this libas, but they're wearing a different libas. They got dye. Like if you put dye in your bed, orange dye, you can see it's orange in it. When some people wear libasul taqwa, their libas is of taqwa, of piety, and you look at that person, you say Allah, because they remind you of Allah. It's Allah's sibgha. Ala kullin, this is a hadith about being hasty in good deeds. But because I mentioned Yawm Uhud, I thought I'll mention that. What an important point we take from Uhud. So he says, Ara'ayta, the man says to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, aapne kya dekha hai, in qutiltu fa'ayna ana, agar main shaheed ho jaun to main kahan hoonga? If I am martyred today, fa'ayna ana. Ayna means what? Where? Ana means me. Where am I? Yeah, where am I? Qala, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, fil jannah. You can translate the hadith. Fil jannah. What does fil jannah mean? In jannah. Fi means in, al jannah means jannah. Fa'alqa. What does the man do? Fa'alqa tamaratin kunna fi yadihi. So he had tamar, kajur. Fi yadihi. Fi yadihi. Yad. What does yad mean? In his hand. Fi yadihi. In his hand. Fa'alqa. So what did he do? Hand pankiyana. Through the tamarat that was in his hand, ثُمَّ قَاتَلَ and he began to fight hatta qutil until he was martyred. Now the point of the hadith is what? That when you hear of khair, don't think twice. Don't be a philosopher about it. Yeah? Someone said this to me. There's a masla, I won't go into the masla. And he goes, oh, but look, it's too much emotion. I said, yeah, sometimes you need that emotion. You know, when you start thinking like a philosopher, you know when Shaykh al-Akbar, you know what Shaykh al-Akbar said? Quddisa Sirru Ibn Arabi. He said that when the Mahdi comes, the Mahdi, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, the first people to oppose him, unke jo mukhalifin, awwalan, kaun honge? Al-Fuqaha. Not all the Fuqaha, but the first Garo, Ta'ifa, group that will oppose him and say he's not the Mahdi, ye pata nahi kehda extremist aa gaya. Exactly, isn't it? But you can see that, can't you? Main mic mein band karke gal kar raha, right? But like you can see that happening. People like, because andru, internally, what's the issue? Ke hun agar ye waqi Imam Mahdi na, to fir jana bhi paisi, fir qurbani bhi deni paisi. It's true, isn't it? I just want to go home, put my feet up, to watch my favorite Netflix show with my popcorn, sweet and salty, mixed with some Smarties in it. That's what I want to do, right? That's what, if you think about it, I just want to go home and chill. My family, kids running around, noise, nice and easy life. Well, how do you think the Sahaba dealt with Badr? So easy, isn't it? I'm saying these things, I'm not, if you feel really awkward and, oh my gosh, yes, that's me too. I feel exactly the same. That if that is the case, फिर तो कारोबार भी गया, कार भी गया, बच्चे भी गए, everything's gone, isn't it? Who's going to run your business while you're with the Mahdi? तो उस वाला जासो तो पीछे तुझे पासपोर्ट ही क्या उसी? It's true, isn't it? It's true. Look at that sacrifice. Who's going to do that? So then what do? You give dalail for it, of course you do. What else you do? I always say, never debate with the Maulvi. Because the Maulvi will always have a dalil. Always have a dalil. That's why the difference between some ulama and others is that they're salihin. That we love the ulama that are salihin. The Prophet ﷺ said the best thing in this dunya are the righteous ulama. The righteous, salihin. And he said the worst thing in this dunya are the ulama as-su. Ulama as-su, the ulama of evil. They're the people that their entire day is in siyasat. His Maulvi ki ethu kis tarah karna, main apna na itha kis tarah bana, how can I put my name here, how can I do this, how can I do that. Their whole day, rather than acho, kitab padho, let me teach you what Rasulullah said sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather than padho, puri din dimag ko tha nahi, मैं अपनी सीट किस तरह बचा, मैं फलाने किस तरह करना, मैं ये किस तरह करा, उसी किस तरह दबा, ये पैसे किस तरह बना, ये चैरिटी ने पैसे किस तरह छिपा. It's true, isn't it? Ulama usu. And I'm not saying the majority, no, I will astaghfirullah al-azim. But it's a fact. You have to call a spade, right? Now when that tanzeem gets together and they think, oh, cha, Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Mahdi al-Muntazir, or al-Muntazar rather, alayhi salam has come, तो ऐसा हम दिल भी को नहीं जाने ना, तो हम क्या करा? For years we were quiet, चप्पी था, कम ऐसा करने लिया, चुप रहे हो, under the radar, टक, yeah? लेकिन वो तो बंदा चुप ही नहीं रही सकना. You know, you have to say, there are certain mawaqi' where the munafiqeen are exposed. For example, Mawla Ali was an example of that. He was a mi'yar of the munafiqeen, because the hypocrites, they were not Muslims in the time of Rasulullah. They were not Muslims. And they hated Sayyidina Ali. Yeah. There's a whole pas manzar for this. They hated Sayyidina Ali. So the Prophet made him a mi'yar. The hubbuka, the love of you is a sign of iman, and bughduka is a sign of nifaq. Certain occasions achieved that. Where the truth, like for example, you could have heard governments for years saying, we are the bastions of civilization, of human rights, of all of that. And suddenly, since the 7th of October, Now you're like, well, what happened to your humanity? Right? It's about human rights, the champion of human rights, the West. Where's that when you've got nearly 30,000 people dead, thousands of whom children, thousands of whom, majority of whom children, and thousands of whom still under the rubble? Was this not a time where the nifaq, the hypocrisy got exposed? All those journalists that claim to be objective journalists, the nifaq exposed. The hypocrites, double standards, triple standards, one rule for one, another rule for another. Ukraine was the first blow for me when I realized this isn't happening over there in Afghanistan where we're used to brown people dying. This is happening on our own doorstep in Europe where white people are dying. Hasha. Would a Muslim ever think like that? Whether it was white or black or brown, would they ever think? Or they think, a life is a life? What does the Quran say? Anyone that takes a single life, it's as if they took all of humanity. That's what my Quran says. But you're the bastions of human rights. Where you not only are you quiet about this, you are aiding it with weapons. Aiding it with weapons. And anyone that speaks against you, you are silencing them by making them You know this idea of, government. This is supposed to be a democracy. The whole point of a democracy is that power is with the people. What makes me any less than a politician in parliament? What makes me less? He's a subject, I'm a subject. What makes me less? What makes his voice, his views better than mine? I thought we fought communism and got rid of it. Didn't we? I thought we fought. You know what we pride ourselves on in the West? Is that we got rid of despotism in France and Europe through the revolution. Yes, the French Revolution that brought about libertarian ideas. And then you had people like Edmund Burke in England writing saying, don't let that revolution come to England. No, it was celebrated. Come, we reduced the monarchy to nothingness and mere celebration and beautiful clothing. But the real movers and shakers are the parliamentarians. Why? Because unlike a king who does what he wishes, we will represent the people. That was the dream. That's what you said. And yet the moment someone stands up and says, why are we sending money and weapons to go and kill people over in a different part of the world in the most horrific way? You can't say that, you're an extremist. You're sympathizing with terrorists. That's what you're doing. So everyone shut up. Oh, no, I'm not going to be quiet. You can't bully me like that. I don't sympathize with no terrorists, but I empathize with humans under the rubble, and I stand up against oppression. How do we deal with this guy then? I know what we'll do. We'll dox him. We'll expose him on social media so he's forced to get thrown out of his job. You know how many people have lost their jobs? People in Aylesbury. For what? For a tweet. For what? For holding a flag. This is when the pigs start walking. Animal Farm. You read Animal Farm? Yeah? You're going to order it on not on Amazon. Boycotting Amazon. You're going to order him Animal Farm. In fact, the best thing you could do is find a second-hand bookshop and support them. Animal Farm, read it. Read it and then come back and talk to me. And tell me if the world around you isn't that. And then read Brave New World of Aldous Huxley. Huxley with the X. Huxley. Two of the most important books written. And they were writing in the past about a dystopia that they could see coming. You're going to read it and you're going to say, I'm living that dystopia. I'm living in that. You know what dystopia is? Opposite of utopia. Utopia is like the perfect world. Dystopia is the opposite of that. Somebody may think, oh, you're being a bit harsh. No, that's a fact. It's a fact. No. So why do I need to feel scared? If I'm violent, yes, that's illegal, that's wrong, it's immoral. If I incite hate and violence and discrimination and racism and every other ism that is a problem, no problem. But if I merely voice my concern about what I think is oppression, and I can't do that, that's the definition of a police state. But no, be quiet. Be quiet. Kuch na ho. silence, go under the radar, don't ruffle any feathers. Tika, fine. For how long? For how long can you keep that up? Until one day someone says you can't read the Quran. It's got things in there that are problematic. In Quran Sharif, yeah? It'll be there. In the Quran has some hard facts and truths. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do when they say to you, like France, you can't have minars? You can't have masjids, outward-looking masjids. What if they then suddenly think it's extreme? It was extreme just to say X, Y, and Z, but now it's extreme for you to wear the hijab. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do? If you don't stand up now, you risk يَبِيعُ دِينَهُ, as the Prophet said. Look at this hadith here. The Prophet said about the end of times, that a man will wake up a believer and die a kafir. And he will wake up a kafir and die a believer. Look at the words of your Rasul. He was telling you the future, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said about that time, look, he said, فَسَتَكُونُ فِتَنًا فِتَنٌ كَقِطَعِ اللَّيْلِ الْمُظْلِمِ. He spoke about the fitan of Akhir al-Zaman, in the end of times. That will be like the darkness of light. And he says, يَبِيعُ دِينَهُ بِعَرَضٍ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Then he sells his deen بِعَرَضٍ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Nothing. Give us 2 more days where nobody says anything to us. Let me eat for 2 more days. Miki rajan jo thoda ja. Nafs nahi rajna. And aj nahi ta kal se. And then you're going to sit there and think, oh. And ena da qiyamat radari yabi'u deenahu bi'aradin min ad-dunya. Small little price sells his deen. First he sells one thing. The first thing you do is you sell your backbone when you're too scared to say anything. That's one thing. When you're too scared to stand up and be counted for and say, I don't want to leave this dunya except that I can say to Allah, Ya Rabbi, with whatever means I could, I stood up against oppression. And I stood with my brothers and sisters wherever they were, like in Palestine. And I stood up for Mosque al-Aqsa in whatever capacity I could. I lost everything because of it. But I did it for your sake. Something to present to Allah on the Day of Judgment. Hey, chup rahe on this, kal tak sa what you'll have to be chup on. Yeah? Be chup on this, and tomorrow, do you think that people that don't want religion, not really, that they're going to let you survive, ever, without asking you to compromise on bit, after bit, after bit, after bit? First, forget about Masjid al-Aqsa, forget the concept of Ummah, forget that. You want nothing to do with them. Oh, dargah lo lagi hai. Asa idhar ji. Take care. Next, what are they going to ask you to do? What if they say, well, now we want all the sermons to come from the state because you guys are extreme? Why are you extreme? Because you make a tafriqa between Muslims and non-Muslims. That's discrimination. Even though you're not doing anything, but you make a difference between them. You say that they're different. Muslims are different, non-Muslims different. What are you going to compromise on? What are you not going to compromise on? What? Tell me. How far are you willing to go? Keep doing it until there's nothing left. Nothing left. And so this may sound very harsh or extreme. That's why when the Mahdi comes, the fuqaha are going to fight him. They're going to give their fatwa then. They're going to say, oh, nahi ji, pata kya hai? Hai maslahata, hai maslahata, hai maslahata, hai maslahata. Oh, havi lagna bhi ajeeb ja, maybe he's not, etc., etc. Our deen, hamara deen to bas aisa hai na? Because for 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, all you've heard is that your deen is just meditation. Your deen doesn't stand up for the oppressed or say that a wrong is a wrong. Your deen is like Buddhism. Just bas zikr azkar, nothing else. Deen sara. No. So why these things, and they come across so harsh, is because in the time that we live in, where other people can say, you have the right to defend yourself, and the proportionality of that is just unquestioned. Like by any means necessary. Go and destroy, flatten 75% of Gaza and render it inhabitable. Can you believe? I don't believe what I'm saying these things. Wallahi, I don't believe it when I'm saying these things. That 75% of a land is not inhabitable. Uninhabitable. You can't live there. Nobody can live there. 75% of all of their houses have been destroyed or damaged beyond livability. You call that defense. But if I was to say the opposite, it's extremism. No, we don't believe those lies anymore. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. We don't believe in those lies anymore. And we're not going to. And people may disagree with us and think that this is unwise. But the Prophet ﷺ said, Badiru, that when something happens, be quick in it. The more you think about it, the quicker shaitan talks you out of it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not to say don't be wise. It's only just to say that sometimes let your heart lead. Let your heart lead. Wa akhiru da'wana, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. May Allah protect us, the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to take our right on this earth. That we are people and citizens of this earth just as much as anybody else's. And our voice is just as important as anybody else's. And our views are just as important as anybody else's. And we also have hearts and minds and souls. And we will not allow those to be dictated to by anybody else. That we will speak. We will speak as long as what we are saying is the truth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us upon the truth, upon the right path. The path of actual peace. The path of genuine peace. The path that actually wants to see solutions where people could be happy, but not wars rooted in the usurping of land and the making of billions and trillions of dollars. May Allah protect us from such a fate. Allahumma ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallillahumma wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Ameen bi rahmatika ya Rahman.